Cheers. All right, everybody. Welcome to the April tutorial. So for this one, we are doing a fairy composite. The wonderful Deanna Bridges, she sent me her photos to edit, and I had so much fun with this fairy one. It was so awesome to create for her. And she asked me to do basically that image again, but with another like photo that she had taken with her daughter. So that's what I'm going to do. It's basically the same background and everything from the previous fairy like composite that I did. But it's just going to be a different photo of her and her daughter that I'm going to use in this one. So that's what we're going to do. I'm really excited for this tutorial this month, and let's get started. So what I did was I opened up a new file, and I always do like the 8x10 size, and usually it's around 4000 by 5000 pixels and 300 dpi. And I'll show you the photo she sent me. So this is the photo she wants edited in the same backdrop as the previous fairy photo that I did for her. And we're gonna do this one of her daughter and her as Tinkerbell and Queen Clarion, I believe. My kids watched a few of the Tinkerbell movies, but I'm not super great on the names and everything, but I'm pretty sure it's Queen Clarion. All right, so let's bring up my folder. So these are the stock images that I used for that previous fairy photo. We're probably not going to need the feet for this one. What happened with the other photo that she had sent me is her daughter's feet were kind of cut out of the image, so I needed some feet to bring back in. But we're going to use these four here, and I will get started on the background here. So the first thing I'm going to bring in is the background here, which is like a fairy garden kind of thing. And I think I just placed it somewhat around here. I don't think I used all of it. I think it was kind of like this here. Something like that. Okay. And then we will bring in the trunk. What we're going to do is we are just going to unlock this one, and we'll go to the properties panel here and remove the background. All right, and I'm just going to drag this layer over to our composite. And we'll hit OK. So I'm pretty sure on the original one, I actually made this background quite a bit bigger. I'm just going to blow it up here a bit. Let's just remember what I did with it. Something like that, I think. Something like that. And with this layer, we're going to first right click and turn it to a smart object. I'm going to go Control T. And I believe what I did was I stretched it out a little bit, but let me just see. Yeah, I think I did a little, just to make it a bit bigger. Like around there. And now we will close up these ones because we don't really need them anymore. We need that one still. So now I'll bring over the tree branches. I'm just gonna pop them into Photoshop here. Okay, I do remember these tree branches being a lot of fun. I'm being sarcastic because that going around all of these was a challenge. All right, if you go here, let's just go to our channels layer. turn the color channels off for a sec. I'm just gonna see if there's a clear not really, hey? Okay, this one looks a little better. So we're gonna make a copy of this one. Apply image, got it. All right, so if you do multiply, you can see now we're starting to get a little bit of definition between these two. So what we're gonna do is now go to our burn brush, and we're just gonna put this like to 100 here. And we're just gonna burn the shadows. So if I kind of, well, at 100%, you're gonna run over that, but we're just gonna burn the shadows. Okay. Now we're gonna switch it to the dodge, and we're just gonna keep doing this until we get these leaves brighter. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to the burn brush. So then we're gonna go back to the image, apply image, and do another, let's just see. Pin light, maybe. Maybe that had. Okay. And now I'm gonna go back to that burn brush again and get closer to those leaves, and it should just kind of mostly burn like the behind the leaves. And this area I'm not really sure about, but now what we can do now is, now that we've got basically like a pretty good difference between the background and the leaves, we're gonna drag it down to the little circle here, and it's going to select our selection here, and go back to all our layers. Let's turn all these back on. Click on the layer mask. So I want to keep the layers of it, so if I have to go back and clean it up, then I have the whole thing. So I'm just gonna convert it to a smart object and Control T to resize it. Now I had it fairly big and it was kind of like here, I think. Okay. And then we're just going to put a brightness and contrast on that and clip it down. Bring that really down. And a hue and saturation and clip that down. And we're just gonna take some of the saturation out, and I want it to be a little more on the blue side since the background is kind of on the blue side. And we can bring the darkness of that down more. Oops. I'm just gonna make it a little bigger. Kind of right in there. Okay, I'm gonna close this. I know it's a really messy selection, but we will be able to fix it. So, okay, so the same thing we wanna do is go to channels. Now we need to find the channel that's gonna have the most difference going on here. So, all right, I think the green layer actually has the most difference with this background. So that's what we're gonna do. So you make a copy, and then you want to go to image, apply image, and we're gonna go to the, I think, multiply. Maybe I'm just trying to figure out which one we want to do here. Actually, overlay looks pretty good, so let's do that one. And we're gonna have to darken this up quite a bit, but you want to go to burn, and I'm just going to start with the background here because the leaves are, oops, burn. Let's make that a little smaller up here. Because yeah, the water is going to be the hardest because it's just as bright as some of these leaves in here. So just kind of go in between these here, get some of the difference going on with some of these leaves. Okay, and we'll kind of start going in down here. This is going to be the hardest, is this down there, but the other thing you can do is actually take, instead of using the burn brush, another thing you can do, like for this section, I'm just going to take a black brush, oh, not that one though, black brush, and just paint it out because I know I'm not going to need that piece, and it's easier for me to black it out versus like burn it out, if that makes sense. So I'm just kind of getting that piece there. I know I'm not going to need any of this water down here, so we'll just black that out. I'm just gonna get nice and close, and I'm gonna just have to paint a lot of this part. This is like an old school. This is how I learned to select things when I was in college. It's pretty old school, but alright, so I'm gonna just take that burn brush again and burn some of this water. Okay, and now we'll go to the dodge brush and dodge these leaves. I'm just gonna ignore this area for a second and just do up here. Okay. I'm just going to get a smaller brush and just kind of try to get the leaves as best I can here. Okay, and then what we can do is try another one of the apply image and just see if it helps at all. Maybe if we do multiply. Maybe hard light. Let's try the hard light. Okay, and the burn brush, we're just gonna try to get this background more burned. Okay, and with my paintbrush, since I know this is just water, I'm just gonna paint out those. Yeah, we're gonna have a little selections to do still to clean up in here around the water and around here and around the water, but this is definitely going to help a lot with all these little leaves. Bring that burn brush back. It's looking a lot better. Alright, I think this is as good as we're going to get this. So, select it. Go back to our layers. We're gonna copy this. And then we're just going to hit that as well. See? So we made a layer mask and we're gonna drag it and drop it. Oh, it's made itself a little. We don't want it. We want it underneath this one. And we're gonna go we're gonna first right click, create a smart object, Control T to resize it. And I believe it's just something like this, maybe a little higher. Something like that. Okay, and we'll hit OK. With this one, I'm just going to go ahead and blur it because it's in the foreground, so it's going to be blurred. So we're just going to go, I meant to go Gaussian blur. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And it's going to be quite a bit blurred because it's in front. How much did I have it blurred? It's probably about right there. So I have it at 20.8. And let's go ahead and put a brightness and contrast on this other one. So I just made a brightness and contrast layer and I'm going to create a clipping mask down to the other branches and just make it a lot darker. Contrast, we don't want more, I think we want a little less contrast. We'll put another hue and saturation on that as well and create a clipping mask. I'm just going to bring the saturation down, and then I'm going to bring it up to more of that blue tone a little bit. And yeah, obviously we've got some cleaning up to do in here, but overall, it's not looking too bad. So it's good. Yeah. So the other thing that I'm going to do is blur the background. So we'll go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Not that much. Maybe about 3.9. And I think what I'll do is I may just get rid of this little path right here. We'll see. I'm not sure if that's what I want to do or not. Okay, I just might want to bring this up a bit. Yeah, right about there. Hit enter. Yeah, I think what I didn't like so much with the path in the other one was that you lost all the pretty flowers in the background, but okay, it does need to be darkened up a bit as well. So I'm gonna go another brightness and contrast and right click and create a clipping mask, and I'm just going to darken the background a bit. Like right about there. And the stone, same thing. We want to bring it darker. It's supposed to be night. So we'll create a clipping mask, bring it darker. And then the other thing we want to do is bring it about that dark right there. I may darken up everything even more. Bring another hue and saturation up. We want it to be more on the blue side, blue-green side, because it's supposed to be nighttime. So maybe not that blue-green. Like, turn the saturation way down. Maybe about right there. And let's just darken it a little bit more as well. So we may as well try to just get our fairies in there too. So let's unlock it. Go to properties and remove background and just see how well that does. That's okay. Not amazing with her wings for sure. So let's bring that back. Oh, oops, I have that on the wrong thing. I want that on my brush. Fairy wing, fairy wing. Bring those fairy wings back. I'm missing one over here. Okay, so now I can just go back to my white and clean that up a bit. I'm gonna go crazy on this though. Okay, I'm doing a terrible job. What I'll do is just bring that back. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about this selection because I'll definitely be going back in to clean it back up. So I'm just gonna drag this and drop it in. And we'll say okay. We want them to be over top of these leaves, but under these ones. And I'm going to convert them to a smart object. We'll go Control T, and I think I'm going to flip them. Transform, flip horizontal, and I'm just going to make them smaller. They're fairies. And I might like rotate them a bit, and I'm probably gonna do some puppet warp on her legs and feet. Okay, so we'll just leave it like that for now. Alright, so I'm gonna do the puppet warp on these fairies. So we will go to File, or sorry, no, Edit, and then Puppet Warp. And I'm just going to put like their wings, one on each wing, and their face, and their hands. And we're going to just bring, or I want this hand to kind of stay in place as well. And we're going to bring these feet a little more back, I think, to make it look like they're flying a little bit more. All right, and then same with this one. I'm gonna actually straighten out her a bit and then bring this one up behind her. Okay, I'm gonna hit enter on that and just see what it looks like. Pretty good. I'm going to go back in that puppet work for a sec. And I'm gonna straighten out this toe, get a little more pointy. And maybe these ones as well. Alright, so we're gonna clean up. Yeah, I want them to look more like they're flying, so that looks pretty good. And I'm going to probably go into the liquify as well and liquify them a little. So we'll go up to filter and liquify. And I just want to kind of put like a little wave in the dress so that it's looking more like they're flying and moving. And in here, we're just going to kind of straighten her torso and knee a bit more. I don't really want her knee to be kind of poking out like that, so I'll just straighten that up a bit. And maybe her back slightly as well. Yeah, hit OK. All right, and now we can kind of work on the selection. So we will put, I actually might, yeah, we'll put a layer mask on there, and 100% the brush will make it more like 80 at 100% on the black brush, and just try to paint that in. It looks like we'll have to go back and try to fix some of this. No, I might do that first. Just kind of bring her arm back in here. Oops. On the actual layer mask though. Anything else? Oh, I think that's good. Okay, so hit yes. I'm gonna keep that. All right. So because I did puppet warp them, it's just not quite working. Just gonna clean up the arm here. The forest needs to be darkened, so I'm gonna put a brightness and contrast on the, oh wait, I already had one. I'll just click back into this one and darken it up some more. Bring the contrast down a bit. There. Alright, these fairies. I'm going to do a brightness and contrast on them as well. But I'm going to kind of paint it off Queen Clarion because she's going to be the brightest. subject of the photo. So I'm going to paint it off of her, and I'm going to make my brush like really soft. And I'm just going to do a little bit on like the face of Tinkerbell and like her arms, like in the front of her, because Queen Clarion's light will be shining on her a little bit. On the front of her wing there as well. Okay, the stump needs to be darkened up some more as well. So we'll just bring that down. But I'm going to brush a little bit of that, like at 20%, off underneath the fairies here, especially under Queen Clarion. A bit under Tink, because they're going to be shining a little bit on top of the stone here. Alright, let's maybe add in the sparkles. Actually, let's work on the background first, because I'm going to turn all of this off. I do want to get rid of this path here. Let's put the stump back in for a second. So mainly this whole area right here I just want gone. So I'm going to use my stamp tool and select some of the green. I guess I'm gonna have to put that on a layer mask. Like right in here. Just gonna clean that up a little. Oops. Let's put that stump back in. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It's gonna be hidden a little bit behind some of these leaves is the fairies anyways, so I just didn't like the color of the pathway there. So all right, the fairies also need some saturation taken out, so I'm going to clip a hue and saturation. And I'm just gonna bring some of that saturation out a bit. I think maybe not that much, it's like too much. Like around the 10 mark. Okay. And also, I'm going to do one more hue and saturation and clip that to the fairies. And I'm just going to change the color of Tink's wings. I want them more on the like green side. A little more green. So hit Control I to invert that, and with my brush I'm just gonna paint the green in on these wings. Alright, I'm going to do one more brightness and contrast. background. And I'm actually going to bring the brightness up on Queen Clarion here, because she's supposed to be like super bright. And I'm gonna hit Control I and then paint that in. And okay, and again on like a softer brush, I'm just gonna like put some of the highlights in on Tinkerbell here. Just on her face. Because she's looking at Queen Clarion here. And her highlights in her hair. Maybe in her eyes even, like if I can brighten up her eyes a little bit. All right, this background. Needs to get cleaned up. All right, turn the fairies off and let's try to clean these up. This is gonna be fun. I think I'm gonna have to double click on this and try to bring back some of the leaves in here. So with my white brush at 100%. And pretty hard, try to paint these leaves back in. Okay, so once I got the leaves kind of tidied up and brought them back in, I darkened them up a little and I played around with the position, but I ended up sticking with something pretty close to what I had before. I noticed that I was missing a few places that I accidentally cut out. So what I had to do was select and copy, paint in a little bit on another layer and just resize it so it blended in with the rest of the leaves, so that we didn't have that piece missing. Okay, I'm looking for my glitter brushes just to see. I don't think that these are the ones I used. No, I think I used, what were they called again? Were they part of the brush? No. Magic Dust, that's the one. I used the Magic Dust brushes. And I'm just gonna grab one and I'm gonna select the color of her. And we're just going to start dabbing these on. I think I had it on a linear dodge and I just kind of went around her like this. Go to the white brushes as well. Why is it not going over top of her? Do I have it under the fairies? Oh, I do. That's why. Yeah, too much. I'm just gonna start over. And I'm going to again select like a brighter yellow. And I'm just gonna like go to my brushes here. Brushes. And we're gonna scatter these a bit. And shape. Angle, jitter, shape, jitter. There we go. And just going to keep brushing those on. And I'm probably going to be painting some of these off as well. Alright, I'm going to select a different one. Maybe like this one here. And again, go to my brush. We'll change the size and angle and a little bit of a scatter. Maybe the count as well, just a bit. Okay. Alright, now what I did with the dress is we're going to go to fairies, and on this one we're going to just get like our regular soft brush, and at 100% I'm going to like paint off some of the dress with a soft brush, and we'll lower that. Some just kind of blending that into the glitter. Okay. Now with the glitter, we're going to at 100% fairies glitter is what I'm looking for. Glitter. I'm gonna at 100% just kind of like paint maybe the brush a little harder. I'm just gonna paint it. Oh, that's not right. We want a layer mask on there, and I'm just gonna paint some of that away. Especially on her hand here. And we're just going to put one more layer, but put it underneath. Let's spell that correctly. Okay, and on glitter 2 layer, just in behind them, I'm gonna add some more glitter, smaller. maybe a different brush. Different glitter magic dust brush. Maybe just like this one. And I'm just gonna rotate it. So if you hit Control and then, oh sorry, you hit Shift and use your arrows, you can rotate your brush. I'm just deciding which way I want it to be. I want it to be a lot smaller. Oh, this is supposed to be kind of behind them. Why is it? Oh, here we go. Let's bring this behind the fairies. Bring it way down. Right here. Okay. And I'm just gonna blur this layer a little bit. Filter, Gaussian blur, and bring that down. Like 1.2. Looks pretty good. Okay, and I feel like the fairies and the glitter, I'll need to move over a little bit. So glitter, fairies, glitter, and I'll hit Control T, and I'm just gonna move them over slightly. Okay. So now with Tink, she's not going to have quite as much glitter. So I'm going to put in like brackets here, Queen. Okay. And we'll make another one and we'll call this Glitter. And we're going to say Tink. Okay. And we will put a little bit of glitter on Tinkerbell. Once I had all of the glitter put in, I decided I needed to clean up the background a little, and I just put a brightness and contrast on that layer again, a second one, just to darken it up a little bit more. There was that one little sunspot that was bothering me, and so what I did was just double click on the layer to bring up the smart object so that I could just clone that piece out. Once it was cloned out, I brought it back into the image and I blurred up the background a little bit, just at about 3%. And then adjusted the hue and saturation, or the color balance actually, sorry. Adding a little bit more blue in there and desaturating it just slightly. And since I darkened up the background, I realized that the stump needed more shadow on the bottom because the light from the fairies is up on the top of it. So I added the shadow and highlights layer. The shadow layer is always on multiply, the highlight layer is always on overlay. And I just select a dark color of the stump and then paint those shadows in, and then do the opposite with the highlights. So on the highlights layer, then I would select some light color from the fairies and then paint that in on the top of the stump. And then I just continue doing that process with all the other layers. So on each branch, I'm going to add the shadow and highlight layer on the background, on the fairies. And right here, I'm just adding a layer underneath the fairies, and I put it on linear dodge blending mode. And this is for the glow behind the fairies. So what I'm going to do here is add a glow. I'm going to select a color that's kind of a bright yellow color that's matching Queen Clarion's dress. And I'm just going to paint that around the edge of her. And I'm going to do it kind of the way I paint in shadows, where I start pretty close to them. It's going to be the brightest at the along the edge of the fairies, and then it's just going to kind of blend out. So I'm going to make my brush a little bigger and just kind of blend that out and add that glow in there. And once I had the glow in there, I just decided to go in and adjust the, just kind of clean up the masking on the fairies here and clean up the edge. And then I made a second glow layer underneath them, and just at 5%, I just made a really big brush and added that glow in behind them more, so it's it blended out a bit more, made it a bit softer. And since our fairies are supposed to be flying, I decided that we needed to add a little motion blur on the wings. So what I did was I just selected all of the fairy layers and merged them together. And then I made a copy of the fairies, and I put the motion blur on the copy that's on the top. And then we just put a layer mask on there and invert that layer mask by hitting Control I. And then I'm just going to paint with my white brush at about 52% on the wings, and it'll add that kind of motion to those wings. Alright, and since our fairies are glowing quite a bit, I decided that the branches behind them needed to have more of that color tone, the yellow tone in the highlights. And so I made a new layer just above them, and I believe I put this layer on vivid light in the end. Right here I'm putting it on linear dodge, but I believe I changed it to vivid light. And I'm just going to paint in that yellow tone so that it really looks like they're casting that light onto those leaves. And then I just made some final adjustments on each layer with the highlights and shadows. Just making sure that because Queen Clarion is quite closer to the stump than Tink, her highlight would be brighter. So that's why I was just adding a little bit more there. Okay, and then I realized that the stump wasn't quite covering the bottom of the image. A little bit of those pixels were showing underneath, so I had to just resize it. I just decided to stretch it a little bit just to cover that piece. Okay, and then before I flattened everything, I needed to make sure that all of my layers were cleaned up. So here I am just tidying up those leaves. And what I did was I just put a brush on 20% opacity and just cleaned up around those pieces and painted out the background that was still showing through. I'm flattening the image, but of course before I flatten I always save a copy with all the layers, and then so the reason I'm flattening this is so that I can use my action set. I like to always kind of do finishing touches with my action set on my images. So the very first action I always use is the frequency separation with the sharpen action, and I'm just going to clean up their skin and make it look a little more soft and painterly. So here I am just selecting their skin with the patch tool, and I'm adding a bit of blur on their skin on the blur layer. If you guys want a more in-depth tutorial on how to use my actions, just let me know and I can make something for you guys. Maybe comment below this video if you want to see a more in-depth tutorial on that.